Hey Mels, I'm so excited that you could come and spend some time with us today. So Mels, you are you're basically just a very talented lady. You are a qualified play therapist, yeah?
I am, that's right, yeah.
But you also have lots of other strings to your bow, and that's sort of what I would like us to talk about today. You've recently qualified, is it PACE, is that right?
Yeah, so it's an approach that's designed by Dan Hughes, who's a psychotherapist, and it's called PACE, and it stands for playful, accepting, curious, and empathic.
Nice. And so this is another string to your play therapy and arts therapy bow. Do you use this sort of with a certain age range of children, or tell us more about it?
Well, just to sort of backtrack a little bit first, so I am a play therapist. I am a certified creative arts and play therapist, but I'm also a Montessori birth to six teacher trained, and I'm also a forest school leader. And then recently, I've done the PACE training. So when I work with families, I don't tend to kind of have, it's quite a holistic approach. It brings together quite a few different approaches. But the PACE is really helpful when I'm working with parents who've lost their way a bit with their children, or who are really struggling with accepting maybe who their children are. They aren't who they imagined they were going to be, wasn't the picture of parenting that they'd imagined. And the PACE approach is really helpful for that.
I imagine that must happen quite a lot, but just talking from my own experience of having River, like when he was a little baby, it was one thing, and I felt like I could meet all of his needs, and it was quite simple. He cried, I fed him, but then as he turned more into a toddler and got more of his own personality, it was like, oh, I don't actually know how to navigate this. He's a very active little boy, and how can I give him what he needs? And also, so many things were coming into my head, like that he's naughty or that sort of stuff. So I could understand what you're saying about it maybe not being as you imagined or as you planned it to be. Please explain.
Yeah,
more.
so I think when you move into particularly like the toddler age, the parenting that you experienced as a child is what will naturally come out. And so if the parenting that you experienced as a child wasn't particularly empowering, or wasn't particularly skillful, those will just be your triggered initial reactions, and you'll just do it. And so it's when people start to think, this isn't really working, it doesn't feel good for me, and it doesn't look like it feels good for my child, and they might want to start picking apart what's happening and why they're responding like that, and thinking about how they'd like to respond in a different way. Acceptance has got to be a part of that, because you have to want to change the way that you're parenting, otherwise you would never start that journey. So starting to think about maybe your child is this child who other people perceive as being naughty, or they're doing things that you've been told are naughty, or even just this word naughty, like where does it come from and what does it actually mean? Starting to really get curious, which is another part of PACE, about words and terminologies and responses and behaviors, and what behavior really means.
Amazing. So it's a lot about changing your mindset on things.
Yeah, it is. And because really, I mean, I do now work in schools as well, and I see that for me it feels like the sort of dominant force in being around children is a kind of adultism approach, where it's like you want children to act like they're adults, but children's brains don't stop developing until they're in their early 20s, and the frontal cortex, where you make all of your really good decisions and choices and planning and executive function, that takes years and years and years to develop. So when we're asking children to behave like adults or to feel like adults, we're asking them something that's actually neurobiologically impossible. So when we have these words like naughty, what they really are associated with wanting children to act like adults, but they aren't adults. So we have to really learn about what's happening in the brain and what's fair to expect of them, and what behavior really means, in order to be able to understand how best to respond, so that you both feel like, so that you feel like a good parent when you go to bed. And part of being a good parent is self-compassion, because we get it wrong. all the time. I'm a parent, I get it wrong still, and have to go and apologize to my boys and say I didn't do great today, I'm really tired, because I'm human too. And I get tired and I get emotional and all those hormonal and all those things. So part of that is being able to be kind to yourself, but the goal is to go to bed feeling connected and attuned to your child so that you can get up and do it all over again, and it becomes a habit in the end.
Amazing. Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. So a lot of it is more about the relationship you have with your child then. And
yeah, because I mean the relationship, you know, when children are little, at the phase that you're at, they're really dependent on you, but as they get older they'll be obviously less and less dependent on you, and then you want to have the relationship so they come to you when they have something scary or big happen to them in their lives. And there's a great sort of phrase out there on the old sort of social media, which is listen to the little things, because one day the little things will be the big things. And so when you learn to listen to your toddler who's telling you they don't like the wellies, you know, maybe when they're a teenager, they're going to come and tell you that someone tried to touch them in a way they didn't like, or, you know, the little things do become the big things. And if you've got a listening relationship with your child, then they're going to hopefully come and tell you what they need help with as life gets more dangerous and scary.
amazing. Yeah, I do think that when River's, you know, screaming about stuff, it's that whole sort of thing about that is some form of communication. And it might look like it's just a massive meltdown in my world, but to him it's, you know, it's a huge thing that he's desperately trying to communicate something to me. It's just me trying to work out what it is. So
I know, and it's so funny because if I was to meet up with you and I said, God, my shoes are so uncomfortable, I really hate them, they're really, really hurting my feet, there's no way you'd be like, look, just wear them. But that's what we do to children all the time, you know. And if you think about, like, what would I say to my really good friend who's saying this to me, then the response would be really different. And it's just interesting to look at why we are like that, why we're programmed so much as society to be like that towards children, and how to kind of step out of it a bit more.
it's so interesting. I think about River's favourite thing at the moment is plugs. He loves switches, he loves plugging things in, chargers, all that kind of stuff. But there is so much like, no, I've told you not to do that.
Right.
It's like, I think from listening to lots of things, I now understand that you know, I can't just tell him not to do something once and expect him to know that, you know. And like you say, I love how you use the word curious, and I do feel he's just so curious about everything, and it seems to make sense that, you know, he just wants to try and do new things. But as you say about that adult, I expect him, I've told him once, and he should now know to not do that because it's dangerous. And because sometimes he does stay away, sometimes he does listen, but other times he really doesn't at all. And yeah, I definitely get myself into that. If he's not listening to what I'm saying, my brain goes, oh my gosh, he's being naughty. And it's like, I know he's not, but I still, like, the thought pattern can go into that.
Yeah, and of course his concept of dangerous is tiny. He doesn't even have a beginning of an understanding of what dangerous is. And so whilst we all look at plugs and immediately just see and feel danger, he sees it as just an interesting little round square boxy thing on the wall, doesn't he? So even though you've said dangerous lots of times, or whatever word you're using, it doesn't really mean anything to him. So he's basically, on the days he's listening to you, he's basically just kind of bearing you in mind.
So there's a lot of the work that you do then is about encouraging or enabling parents to understand their children more, so that it improves that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting parents to have a little think about what, so it's part of, so there's this kind of three-prong approach, which is co-regulation, and then playfulness, and then this is a different approach, and then setting up the environment. So get parents to look at their house and their home and how it's working, and what the expectations are on their children, and what's not working, and how you can change the environment, because I'm all for making it easier. So, you know, baby gates and things are really helpful if you have a room that's full of you know, things that you perceive to be dangerous in some way. You know, better just to shut that room off and not use it than to try and have a toddler in a room which is impossible to manage. Co-regulating is about learning how to manage yourself and your own stress levels, because our brains fire mirror neurons and children's brains read them. So if our brains are near each other, they literally read the neurons from us. So if we're really stressed, but we're saying calm down, then they're not going to be able to get calm. So that's part of co-regulating, is learning about our own stress and our own stress cycles and how to be in calm. And then the third element is play, because play is so huge for the brain and all of the executive functioning that happens in the brain. is built by play. So, you know, play is like this enormous gift that's given to children. It literally propels development forward. And play doesn't count if it's led by an adult, or if it's structured, if it's really highly structured, like football training, for instance. So play has to be child-led, and it has to be free in order for it to do what the brain needs to develop. And so those three things together, we start to look at, and when I'm working with families, what those things are. And then, as I said earlier, like pick apart some of the words and feelings that the adult is getting around the child's behaviour, and also what the behaviour might be communicating, like you said.
Amazing. So you're going to be doing a Q&A for us, so the mums can sort of send in questions about themselves, you know, their relationship with their children, you know, if they're finding their behaviours difficult. Is there any sort of particular topics or themes or things that you would welcome, or that you would say, would be, the sort of things that you'd be able to help parents with and that sort of stuff?
Well, I don't know really. I mean, I think one thing that sort of sprung to mind was that if because at the point at which you guys are all at with your children, you may be starting to wonder about their development and wonder if they're developing typically. And I'm not able to like help with that other than like in responding to behaviour. But I would just say that from my experience, mothers always know. So if you have a gut feeling that there's something about your child that's not typical, then, and everyone's telling you it's fine, just listen to your gut. So having been through that process myself, I'm always happy to talk to people if they're worried about their children's development. And then really just anything and that people are finding to be triggering and difficult for themselves, then I'm happy to talk about anything really.
Awesome. Well, I think that there is so much value in what you do that isn't kind of easily accessible to all parents, which is why I was so excited that you'd come and have a little chat with us and do a Q&A, because I think we've very much, especially at the moment with the whole pandemic, we're at home with our children and our children's behaviour. And like, I don't want to use the word normal, but I think that sometimes we sort of question whether our children should be doing these things. And, you know, if we're not getting out to groups and seeing other parents with other children, like, oh, actually all children this age do this, or, you know, that's a completely normal thing for them to be curious about plugs, or, you know, all of those sorts of things. I think that's why I just wanted to have a conversation about these things that maybe, you know, some mums might be just sitting at home with and maybe worrying about, when actually they don't need to.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I really feel for all of you having children at this point. When I was in your position, I was out every day. Like, come on, boys, we're going off to a group today, and the next day, and the next day. That was totally my survival strategy, was to get out and talk to other people and meet other people. So the prospect of being at home every day, oh my goodness, I don't know how people are managing. I know it's really, really difficult. So anybody who's really finding it really difficult, happy to talk about those three things I talked about. So the environment, structuring the environment so it's easier, managing your expectations as well, co-regulating. So really important for mums to get an opportunity to get some of their own needs met. And it's so easy to shove your needs to the very bottom of the pile and leave them there for 10 years. But if you get your habits in now, where you are putting yourself and your own self-care needs in the picture every single day, then it's a habit. And that's a habit that's essential for survival. It really is. So, and then play, you know, I can give lots of play ideas to people, although, you know, it is child-led, but how to help up, how to set up child-led play experiences, and maybe looking at what people have and thinking about how to use it in the best, in the way of toys, like how to use them to the kind of best, the best open-endedness. That makes sense.
It makes so much, and it's so cool to know that, like you say, there are different aspects of our home life that that we can change, so that actually things can be easier. And also, obviously, you know, we've got a wonderful playful parents parenting support group coming up, Mel, so we can talk a lot more about play and that kind of stuff, and hopefully people can come out to the group and learn in person and from each other. So that would be really cool. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up because I could feel like I could talk to you for ages. So yeah, thank you so much for spending your time with us today and giving us so much information. And yeah, look forward to hearing what you've got to say when you answer all the mums' questions.
Okay, well, that's a pleasure, and really looking forward to running the group with you.
Awesome. Right, I'll see you soon then.
Right, bye. Bye.